seems legit.
Welcome back to my channel. Today we are making this fabulous summer dress. And yes, I'm aware I live in winter, but I love this dress and I've made several of it before. The pattern is the McCall's M8083. And I've done the short sleeves and the shorter version here. So I've done this picture here. So if you would like to see how I've made this, please stay tuned. Righty-o. So the first thing I've done, and I did it off camera, is all of the facing pieces I have interfaced with my medium woven fusible. So that will be the neckband. There's like a weird Y shape kind of thing and then a straight bit. So they're all the skinny bits and I have interfaced them all. So let's start with them since they're on top of my pile. And so we just need to make sure that we're putting them the right way. So this Y bit, this is our neck, and then this is the start of the straight bit. So to lay that out for you, we've got our round back of our neck. Then we're going to take our two weird Y shapes like this, and they're going to join to our back to make this loop, and then the straight bits go to the bottom. So this is what we're going to do. So what I'm going to do now is I've got them sitting the way they will be. I'm going to take this piece and some pins, always with the pins. I'm just going to put one pin so that they hold steady. And then we're going to join them. Now it looks weird, but clothing pieces can look weird to sew, but you just need to trust the process. They will all work out. So we're going to, I'm on 2.5 as my stitch length, and I'm just on a normal straight stitch. So I'm going to stitch and back stitch, go all the way along, and then back stitch, and then I'm going to grab this next one and I'm just going to bring it in so we can chain stitch these together. And again, we want to make sure that it's all lined up along the edge. Now you can obviously use more pins if you prefer. And then I can snip in between there, and I'm going to chop off those tails. And so now, this is what we've got. So now on this bottom straight part, we're going to take, now because my fabric's non-directional, doesn't matter which way is the top and the bottom, these are just straight bits. So we're now going to attach them to the bottom here. And this is our whole facing piece in one big swoop. And then I'm going to grab the other one. And again, because it's non-directional, it doesn't matter for me. But if you've got directional fabric, obviously make sure the pattern's sitting the right way. And if you're super new to clothes, may I suggest you start with some non-directional printed fabrics or some plain colours so that you don't have to think about those things as well. So if you've never made clothes before, pick something that's, yeah, plain or non-directional, but that you like. A lot of people tell you to just go and buy cheap, crappy fabric. My issue with that is if you don't like it enough that you don't think you'll ever wear it, what's the point in making it? Because you won't enjoy the process. So that is now all of that, our facing. So we can put that away and we won't use that till nearly the end now. So I'm going to take all my pattern pieces. So I cut this out of something called, it's called a few things. It could be called pattern trace or trace and toil. If you don't have access to those things, you can also use a lightweight to medium non-woven interfacing to trace your pattern pieces out of. I personally just find it easier. And if you ever change size or need to make multiples for friends or whatever, by tracing this instead of cutting your pattern, you're less likely to lose the pieces, and you can always trace multiple sizes. So I'm going to put them in here as I finish with them. I keep mine in little envelopes. I get these from, you can get them from Officeworks and Woolworths. And I just have them all sitting in here. So all the pattern pieces will be held with the pattern because I can never fit them inside the sleeve. Just so you all know. Right, let's move on to whatever's next on top of my list here. So this is pattern piece number 2. So this is the front piece. So you can't really see it, but I have actually traced on the dart. So we are now going to transfer the dart onto the fabric. So you're going to lay it wrong side up because you never want to put your dart on the right side. And I'm just going to use a friction pen because it will come off. And then I'm just going to line this up like this. Now to draw darts, there's a couple of ways you can do it. I am just going to lay this down, mark the bottom of the dart here, like this, and then line that up perfectly. And I'm going to fold this back to the top point of the dart, and I'm going to make an X because X's are easier to see exactly where you need to be. Now, if you're new to sewing and you're worried, what you can do is take a ruler and rule those lines. However, if you're slightly more advanced or you'd like to step it up, what we're going to do is we're going to put this right sides together, joining those two little marks that we made at the bottom, and we always start at the bottom and go up. So I'm going to start here and I'm just going to stitch and back stitch. Then I'm going to go where the cross is, which is right here, and I'm going to hold on to that, and I'm going to kind of pull it, not pull it out, but just pull it till it's taut. And then the name of the game is to just sew straight towards your finger, because your finger's at the cross. And this is how I've learned to do darts. Then when you get there, we're going to back stitch. Pull it out, and you have a dart with very minimal effort. If you can't do it that way, or if you're super new to sewing, you just think you'll wreck it, I'll show you the other way to do it. So we take this piece, and then we're going to line it up like we just did before. So I'm going to still mark the bottom parts and mark the top point, but then I'm going to grab a ruler. So there's my X. So I've marked it the same way, but now I need a ruler. And I'm going to rule the line from that point down, like that. And then I'm going to do the other side as well. Like so. Oh, that didn't even work. So now that I've ruled the lines, you can see I've now very clearly got my triangle drawn on there. And again, it has to be erasable or you'll wreck your fabric. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some pins and I'm just going to put it in at one side of the line and then out at the other. And we're just going to run a bunch of these pins. You go in at the line and then out at the line. We're not bunching it yet. Bear with me on this. Basically what we're doing is we're joining up even parts of the dart. So you want to try and make sure that they are kind of parallel, like this. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pinch this to bring the fabrics together and then just put the pins down so that the heads stick out. But if we squish it together, that's lined up that line, and then we push it in. So this is how you do it if you're really nervous about darts. Right, so we push it in all the way together and then just flip it down. And so now you can sew along that line and both sides are lined up. So I'm going to start here and I'm going to stitch and back stitch like I did before. And now I'm just going to sew along that line. Now if you want to, you can pull out your pins or you can leave them in. Get to the X, back stitch, pull it out, and we get the same result. So that's the darts done. So that's that piece done. I don't need that one anymore. Add it to my pile. I will put it away later. So now we're going to go to our, what's this piece? That's our back. I don't want the back yet. I want piece number 1. Where's piece number 1? Skirt, skirt. Oh no, that's a sleeve. We can do the sleeve now. I apologize for the alarm if you could hear that. They do it all the time. It's just parts of the perks of living here, I guess. Right, so this part's a skirt and this part's a skirt. Let's go on to the sleeve before we go on to the back and do more darts. So the sleeve's a bit of a weird shape, and that is because of how we're going to insert it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a sleeve And this short little bit here, we're going to sew together with right sides together. So this is like to create the sleeve. The longer this part is, the longer your sleeve is. So under we go. We're going to stitch, we're going to back stitch. And then I'm going to grab the other one and do the same. And then we're going to overlock this. Now if you don't have an overlocker, I know I've said it before, but I'll say it again. If you don't have an overlocker, you can instead zigzag the edge of your pieces. I use an overlocker because I own one and it's quicker. But if you don't own one and you want to make clothes, it's not the end of the world. You just do a zigzag that's fairly close together and you will get the same result. So I'm just going to come over to the overlocker here. Overlock that seam because we don't want any raw edges anywhere, because I like my my clothes machine washable, and the overlocking allows that without it breaking. You can do it without. I would probably do 2 straight lines as another option. French seaming is another option, but we're not doing that today either. Right, so this is our sleeve. Now this funny shaped bit, this is our actual like top of the shoulder. So this loop here, I want to overlock this and then I'm going to turn it up and finish it. I like to do it now because I find it easier, but you can do it at the end as well. You can also do a double roll hem where you fold it over and then fold it over again to hide the raw edges. But on a curve, that is tricky. This is easier. So that's one. Now I'm just going to do the other. I know my overlocker is noisy. So now that it's overlocked, I'm just going to turn up the overlocking to the wrong side and then stitch that down. And then that will hem it. I am using white thread today because none of my blues that I have on hand match enough for me to want to do it. And I could have gone shopping, but the nearest shop that's probably going to have the right colours like an hour away. Holding this and it kind of folds itself. This is a practice thing. I don't really know how to teach it. I've got one hand behind, 2 fingers in front, and I'm kind of curling it under like this. So I've got my hand on this angle and it's just folding it the amount that I need. You can do this with practice. It took me a while to learn it, but now that I can, it makes it much quicker to sew. Of course, if you are concerned that you can't get it right, you can iron it over, which is one option, or you can use pins, or you can iron and pin, depending on what fabric you're making it out of. Rayon is quite a flimsy fabric. It's not super recommended for beginners. I used to avoid it at all costs. But you could make this dress out of like a poplin, and that would also be lovely. So that's that done. That'll just need an iron at the end, but I always do the ironing at the end. So again, we're going to fold this back onto itself and go again for the second sleeve. like I said, this does take a bit of practice to do. It took me probably, I don't know, 6 months to get this fast at it. I can do it slower. The trick is to also kind of lift it up a little bit, and then I'm maneuvering it like this to make sure I get the right width. Back to the start and back stitch. Trim off the tails. Again, just like bag making, if you trim the tails as you go, you don't have to go around the whole garment at the end to trim off all the tails. So that's my sleeve ready to enter. Next up, we've got our back pieces. So I'm just kind of doing it in like mini modules. So this also has darts. And this is a solid piece like this, and then the sleeves will go in here. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to mark both the darts. Now that I've showed you the two different ways to do it, I'm going to do it without the pinning, but obviously feel free to do the pinning if you want to. It is a good way to learn darts and get a feel for it. So then I'm just going to pull this down and put the cross where the top of the dart needs to be. And then we're going to do the other side. You can see it's got a few wrinkles. If they are bothering you, by all means go and iron them out, but I will be fine for this. If they annoy me, I will also iron at the end to press everything where it wants to be. So again, fold this down, put in the cross, and then that's that piece done. I do go through quite a lot of that trace and toil. You can buy a McCall brand at Spotlight where you get a roll, and I think you get 10 meters, and it sounds like a lot, but if you make a lot of like skirts or bigger items, you run through it really fast. Alright, so again, I've pinched the ends together. I'm going to stitch and back stitch, and I'm going to pinch to here, and up we go. Trim the tails. Alright, together. At the base. You don't even necessarily need to worry about the cross. I've only done like 3 stitches there. Then I can come pinch here, pull, and bring it up. I've actually made this dress in a different fabric before, and I love it so much we're doing another one. This was a clearance rayon, so I actually have this print in this pale blue, and I bought it in a purple as well. So if all goes to plan, I'll get that done this week. It's going to be a 2-piece, so that I don't just have all dresses the same colours. Alright, so now we're going to take this. Now this part here that's the deeper kind of curve, this is the armhole. So if I line this dress up, and this is the top, you can't see, let me just move it over. So this is the top where it's skinny. I'm then going to take this armhole, which is this side, and lay it right sides together, and it gets attached here. So I'm just going to put in 2 pins, preferably not stabbing myself. I did iron this before I cut it all. It's been in this drawer for a few weeks because I haven't got around to making it. And so then we're going to do the same to the other side. And you'll know which side's the armhole because it matches up in size. So if you are confused, you can also reference the actual pattern piece. They usually tell you where front center is on all patterns. And you can mark that on your trace and toil. And then you could even put a pin in here so that you know where the front is, if that's helpful. So I've just got 2 pins in each end. I'm going to bring this back. And then it doesn't matter if you stitch bottom to top or top to bottom, it's whatever you're comfortable with. So we're going to stitch and back stitch. this is a normal, just polyester everyday thread. It's nothing fancy. It is Resent in natural white. So then again, we're going to do this end. There's not that many more pieces to go before we're done. The bit that'll take the longest of this whole process will be all the buttonholes I have to do. And of course you could use snap press studs if you prefer, but I think the buttons are going to give it a really cute look. Trim off all your tails. The more you get rid of now, the less you have to deal with later. So now that I've overlocked those, I am going to, now that I've sewn them, I'm going to overlock them because we don't want any crossover seams to not be overlocked. That's one side. I'm just going to feed the other side in and chain overlock it. Because as always, I like to save time and money because I save thread. And then chop off the tail. You also need to always leave a tail on your overlocker. It's not like a sewing machine. We need to have a long tail. Oh, my bin. Right. So, we've now got this really long piece and we've overlocked both of our seams. Now, what I'm going to do is we're going to put our arms in. So their arms go in here. And I want to show you what that looks like. So this is our arm. So I'm going to take where the seam is, and obviously not the side that we've sealed because that's the open end of the arm. So I'm going to take this part here. Oh, and they have a right and wrong direction. I should also mention that. So if you have a look at the sleeve, it's got this curve at the top. This is actually for our shoulder. So the arm is going to attach from here, this point part, all the way down, around, and up to the other side. But if you join those points, one side will be longer than the other. So we hold it there, bring it down. And so this side that I'm holding is the longer side. So let's put a pin in the long side. And then we just need to come here and the back is the longer side. And this is the easiest way to do it without having a million markings, right? So the back, this part here, is longer than the front. And you can tell that by joining it up and see how one is shorter than the other. So the front needs to be joined to the front. So with this seam in mind, the back needs to go here. So it has to go in this sleeve because there's the back, there's my pin. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put 2 pins at this seam, and I'm going to make sure that the overlocker, one goes one way and the other one's going the other way. This will allow for a flatter seam in your armhole. And I'm going to put in 2 pins. I'm going to put 1 on each side because it will hold down our overlocked part, or zigzag if you haven't done overlocking. Right? And then, because I'm me, I am just going to put a pin at the top to hold it in place, and a pin at the top of the other side to hold that one in place. Now, if you want to, you can obviously overlock all the way around, and you will find, so if you go along like this and just pretend like you've pinned it, right? Pretending I'm putting pins in, you will notice that the point will technically go up slightly past the fabric. That's because the seam allowance kind of stops here, but the point was just easier to create, I guess, in the pattern. So, we are going to start, I like to start at the back, but you can start at the front or the back. We're going to pop it in, take out our pin, pop it down, stitch and back stitch. We're always going to back stitch every seam. And then from here, I am just going to line up the pieces, of which they should all line up beautifully, and then I'm just going to stitch. So I'm basically going to use my hands as pins because the pins here are in exactly the correct spot. So So then I'm just going to line this up, line that up, pinch, and down we go. Now this way isn't for everyone. If you would prefer to do pins, by all means go ahead. I have found it quicker to do it this way though. But if you're a pin person, or you're just too nervous to not use the pins, that's fine. Don't feel you have to do it my way. I'm just showing you. And we're going to bring it around. So now that we're doing the other side, you'll find it kind of won't move as freely because we're stitching all of this up together. And backstitch. So what that now looks like is we have a sleeve, and then that just, the curve just continues around the top, see? Don't worry about that little bit. So, because that's the seam allowance, and we're going to overlock it anyway. Now because I've only got 2 sleeves, I don't need to check this one. I know I cut them opposite, so this will go here. But again, I'm going to line it up. So this one needs to go this way, so the other one has to go the other way. And then we're going to put 2 pins. I always put 2 pins at cross seams. I find it holds it better to get a nicer join. These are how you get perfect joins. Although I didn't check my other one. Look at that. See? Perfect cross seam because I use 2 pins. If there's another way to do it, I don't know it, but my way seems to work pretty well. So then again, we are going to join up the edge. Now I'm not going to put pins in this one because I know we're fine. And we're going to stitch, and we're going to back stitch. This time I've started at the back again, so this time my sleeve's on top instead of the bottom. Not that it really matters. And I'm holding this end up, and I'm using this hand to kind of help guide it through. Line up the edges. Needle down, and then I'm just going to adjust the other half. Like this. We're going to go around that curve slowly because I just ran over the pins. I know that makes a lot of people nervous. Now these are the really short sleeves. Obviously you can do longer sleeves. The pattern comes with 2 or 3 different sleeve size options, I think. I like the short ones. I'm moving to a tropical climate at the end of the year. And I know I'm going to be hot till I really acclimatise. And backstitch. So again, that little bit sticks up, but it's meant to, so don't think that you're trying to perfectly match that. And then I want to come and check my cross seam. It's about 1 mil out. I blame myself for that. It's fine. It's also under the arm, so if it does make a mistake, nobody's going to see it. So don't stress too much about that. So now that we've done that, which looks fabulous, I am going to overlock those 2 seams that we did on the 2 arms. If you have the capabilities to set your overlocker up next to your sewing machine, I highly recommend it. It's quick. I didn't have to move. Even if you just pop it on like a little table next to you, it will bounce a little bit on a little table, but that's okay. Okay. that's one, and then we're going to come back and, oh, I already chopped it off. Look at me go. So that's one sleeve overlocked. Now let's do the other one. Basically, we're going to overlock every single seam before it crosses another one. You also want to make sure no fabric gets tucked under where you're trying to overlock. Or you'll wreck your top. That is now all beautifully overlocked. You want to chop off that tail. Some people like tuck it in and sew it in. I just cut mine. So now realistically you should be able to put your top on and it becomes like a top. Not much of a top because we're not finished, but, and these are like nice big loose sleeves. I think they're called like a flutter sleeve. Right. So that's the top half done. Now we're going to pop that aside and move on to the skirt part. So all skirts are pretty simple. You can alter the skirt on this if you want to. You could have a gathered skirt if you want more volume. You could do a circle skirt so long as the waist part is the same length. So this one, you'll have, this is the skirt front. So they're the two front pieces. You'll cut two. And on the pattern, it does actually show you, I've drawn it here, this is the center front, just if it matters to you at all. So then this piece will be the back. So that's the back, and these are the two fronts. So we're just going to join them together. To make sure I'm doing it right, I'm just going to make sure they are in fact the same size. It doesn't look very long. I've done the shorter option, but it's still long enough. So like this part's your waist and it should go down to around your knee, I think is the size I've done. So line it up, stitch it, back stitch it, as always. It's a good habit to get in, to always back stitch everything. It locks it in. So I'm just lining up the fabric. My fingers are working like pins. Obviously I could put pins in if I wanted to. All lines itself up pretty well. Back stitch, trim the tail, go back to the start, trim your tail. So now we've got one front, a big back, and then here's the other side we're going to join the front to. They really are all much of a muchness. Alright, so that's then going to go here. So again, right sides together, needle down, stitch forward, stitch back. Also keep an eye on your bobbin, make sure you haven't run out. I'm alright for now. I might get through this whole dress with what's left. I'm still just on my 2.5, which is my normal joining stitch length. And I'll be doing the top stitching on that in the same length. Line up the bottom. And back stitch. Trim your tail. Trim the start. So now we need to overlock that. And while we're overlocking, I'm also going to overlock all the seams on my facing. Even though it has got an iron-on interfacing and it is less likely to fray, I'm still going to do it because me and my paranoia just won't allow me to leave it. So I'm gonna just pause it and go and get a drink and a snack, and then I will overlock this off camera and we'll come back and finish up. So you should now have 3 pieces. So you should have your facing bit, you should have your top half, and you should have your skirt. So what we're gonna do now is we're going to attach the top to the skirt. However, you will need to be doing some gathering. So I'm going to teach you how to do that the awesome way. So I'm going to gather this in 3 separate pieces. So I'm going to do the back as one, and then the 2 fronts as separate ones, because we need to match up the side seams here. So I want to do that while doing the gathering, and I don't want it to break. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put my stitch length the stitch length on your machine up as high as it'll go. Mine only goes to 5. Some people's goes all the way up to 6. Whatever you got. So this is the skirt, and I'm going to start with the front piece. Now I'm going to eyeball an inch in from the edge, and then I'm going to start here. So I'm going to go as close to the edge as I can without thinking that it's going to fall off, and I'm going to stitch, and I'm going to back stitch. We don't want this to come out. So now I'm going to stitch all the way up to this seam, going nice and close to the edge. The reason we want to be close to the edge is because we don't want to see these later. You can obviously pull them out, but it's preferable if you don't have to. So we're going nice. I'm actually going to go slowly so I don't run off the edge. Don't do that either. It's not good for our gathering plan. We go all the way up. I'm going to move the seam allowance out of the way, so I don't want to sew that. And I'm going to get to about 1 stitch away from there. I'm going to put my needle down. I'm going to go down 1 stitch, which I tend to manually crank so I don't overdo it. Then lift up the presser foot. And now I'm going to go back and stitch next to that first line I did. Make sure that your lines do not cross under any circumstances. If they do, pull it out, do it again. They cannot cross or this does not work. This way's always hardest because the bulk is inside the throat. So I'm doing them fairly close together, but not so close that I think I'm going to sew them together. Then when we get to the end, we're going to back stitch and lock in those stitches as well. Trim off those tails. So what this looks like is you've got 1 stitch down here and then a line. Now you can see that my lines are not even. That actually doesn't matter. And you need to have back stitched both those edges in, and you want to not go all the way to the edge here because we still have to attach our facing. So now I like to grab my stiletto, and on the bobbin side of the thread I'm going, well, you can do it either way, but I'm going to put my stiletto in that 1 stitch down and pull on it, and you will find that it will just automatically start gathering for you. Alright. So before I go any further and actually match it up, we are going to repeat the process of the stitching. So I'm now going to start just off this seam and do all the way along the back, and then I'll do that same part on the front where I stopped an inch from the end. Because we need 3 lots of, you can do this as 1 big long line, but I actually find it harder to get all the gathers even. So I find this way easier. So again, I'm going to push this out of the way. We're not stitching this into our gathering. I'm going to start here. I'm going to stitch, I just come unthreaded. I have a needle threader on this, which is both cool and slightly annoying. It's cool because this is a mechanical machine. If I was going to buy like a fancy electrical plane sewing machine, it would have an automatic needle threader where I push a button. If I needed a more advanced model, that's what I would get. And I can convert my embroidery machine to do sewing, but it's annoying and I don't want to. So again, we're going to stitch close to the edge, but not so close as your stitches fall off. It doesn't have to be perfectly straight either, so don't stress about that too much. All we currently care about is long stitch length and not falling off the edge. My stitches are in no means even, and I'm not worried about that. I'm not even trying. So needle down, pivot, manually crank one stitch down, and then I'm going to go back next to it. So this is where you go slower to make sure that your lines don't cross. Readjust it, go again. Back one's the big one. Just make sure they do not cross. And then when we get back, we're going to back stitch. And then trim off those tails. So I'm going to do the same thing to the last piece. So you can start, I like to just start wherever I'm at. And then we're going to sew along. And again, we're going to stop about an inch. You can eyeball that. And then we're going to go down one stitch. That was not a very big stitch. Like that. And then we're going to sew back up the other way. Now this one will be a lot shorter because it's just the front panel again. Don't be in a hurry. You don't want to cross your lines. And then when we get back to the start, we're going to backstitch and lock it in. Snip. And any other tails, just make sure you don't snip your loops. Alright, so now that we've done that, you just have a lot of random lines. So, I'm going to take my top. First thing I'm going to do, all of my darts, I'm going to make them face towards the back center, like my spine. Pin them all down to face your spine is the best way to think about that. Pin it down there. And then this one, there's the center. So then I'm going to pin this one the opposite way. You want them all facing towards your spine. I can't remember why, but it is a thing. Right. So now that they're all pinned, we are now going to take our skirt and at the side seam, trim off those tails because those ones are irrelevant, but don't trim the loop that we started pulling on. Very important not to trim that, we're going to have trouble. So, I'm going to take the side seam here and I'm going to pin it to the side seam of the skirt. These are what we're trying to match up. I'm going to use 2 pins like I always do. And we're going to have the overlocked part going in opposite directions. Like that. Then I'm going to come across to the next one. And we're going to pin that as well. I know the idea seems a bit crazy, but this is the easiest way to work out how much gathering to do. So these pins that we're putting in are where it all has to match up. And then we can also put a pin at the end here, because that has to match up. And this is literally how I do every gathered skirt. So if I hold that, this droopy part has to now fit within there. So we grab our single back thread like this, and we just pull on it gently and move the gathers along. So you can just kind of put them in your fingernails and scratch them all over. It would be the best way that I'd describe that. You want to also make sure you're pushing them all the way to the end, not just to the middle. And then we're going to gather some more because it still doesn't fit. See how it's still droopy? Means it's still not quite enough. And we just keep doing that until it fits. So see how now it fits? So I'm going to hold on to that, and now I'm going to disperse the gathers so that they're evenly between the pins. You don't want like all gather in one section. It'll look weird. So now you just kind of fiddle with them until they fit like that. See how now I'm pulling that tight and they match? So now I'm going to grab some pins and I'm going to pin those two pieces together. I have to turn it around so I can see what I'm doing. You can also use wonder clips for this if you have them. But we just want to add this on. Gathering takes ages, but so does pleats, just FYI. You could also do this in pleats. That's a video for another day. We don't do half pleats and half gathers. It'll look ridiculous. Right, so see how it all matches up now, and it's beautiful. So that's one of the 3 sections done. We are going to sew it all together, but first I want to do all of the gathering, because that's just my process. If you wanted to, you could stitch there to there. And I just dropped my stiletto, which is slowly dying. The other end already broke. So we're just going to grab that one thread and then pull and use my fingernails to move the gathers along. You don't want them all gathered at the start. It makes it really tricky to deal with. I haven't got them all the way to the end yet, but I will. So this one's going to have a much longer loopy bit. You'll also notice I've still got the loop on there, and then I just put my thumb or my finger over like that, and this is now like a handle, which makes it easier in my opinion. So again, we're gathering along. I'm making you watch the whole lot in case I think of something else to tell you. So sorry. If this bit's boring, you could just skip ahead, I guess. But I'm just moving them. So see, we're still not quite enough, but we're close. So a little bit more. Another thing you can do, here you go. Another thing you can do is put a knot in it so it can't come loose any further. You'll still be able to pull on it and make it shorter, but it won't be able to be longer. So that's another thing you can do. And then grab that there. And so now I just need to distribute these a little bit more evenly because it's a little bit too gathered at the start point. Just move them through. I need a few more over here. There's no magical way to do this. You just have to fiddle with it till it looks good. And then again, more pins. Pin the layers together. I do personally find this a much quicker way to gather. I know some people used to do like the one line. The problem with the one line of gathering is it's not as strong as 2, and you're more likely to snap your thread and then you have to start again. So that's why I do it this way. I also apologize for my sniffing. I seem to have woken up with a bit of a blocked nose and it's now decided to be runny. Super annoying, but what do you do? I really want to make this dress. Not that I'm going to wear it anytime soon. It's like 4 degrees outside at the moment. That would be Celsius, by the way. I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit. Cold? But not snowing cold. Just raining cold. Just add in some more. It comes loose sometimes right at that edge. Because I didn't do my knot right up against it. It just helps it coming all the way undone. Alright, so that's 2 sections done. We've got 1 section to go. And I still need to throw a pin at the end here because I need it to match up. I don't think it's taken too long to gather it though, personally. I think we're doing pretty well. And I've already started pulling on this one, so that makes it easy too. Scooch them along, spread them out. And then you can hold this end and pull that. Oh, and we're almost there. And that should just about do it, I think. So now I just need to, again, if you want to, you can tie a knot. My knots don't do a lot because I don't get them close enough, but it does prevent them from coming undone any further than that, which is kind of nice. And then I just need to scooch these over because I've got none right at the very start of the gathering. See how there's gathered a lot and then there's nothing there? You just need to even it out. Even is key. Now you'll never get it perfectly even unless you're like having an OCD moment and spend an hour, but that's pretty even. You wouldn't notice that that's not even once we've sewn it. So don't be too worried. You just don't want like a super gathered bit and then a flat bit. It's pretty much the name of the game. So long as it's all got a bit of a gather going on, you'll be fine. So don't fuss too much about it. It's not worth it. I promise. Obviously, the bigger the space, the more time you have to fluff it. So like the back piece took longer than the side pieces because there was basically twice as much fabric. But this part of the video has only been 17 minutes, so that's not too bad. Now, there's 2 ways to do this, and I personally have decided that even though I like the idea that my feed dogs would grab the gathers, I actually prefer to do it the other way, because when I'm sewing this, what I have found in the past is that sometimes this bit down here kind of comes up and gets caught. Not that dramatic, but I was just making a point. So by doing it with the rough bit on top, oh, we also have to go back to our normal stitch length, or this will come undone. So I want to do the ruffles on top so that I can see and make sure that nothing is lifting up underneath it all. Because like I said, I have found that in the past. So we're just going to stitch this nice and slow, make sure nothing's misbehaving. And you can see that all of those gathering stitches are in the seam allowance, so you don't have to pull them out if you don't want to. They will most likely get overlocked over in a minute anyway. I plan on going over my pins. You obviously don't have to do that, but I just like to. And then every time I stop for whatever reason, I'll come, pull the pins out. Don't know why. I obviously don't need to do that. I just like to do it that way. Personal preference, I guess. Again, making sure that none of those gathers are tucking up. Because they will try if you do it the other way. Every time I do this the other way up, there is always at least one that I then have to unpick and refix. So I've decided that this way is ultimately quicker. always stop with your needle down so it can't go and shift on you. Pull out my pins. I'll pull out that pin. One, two, three. Last 3 pins. And so remembering that the very, very end shouldn't have any gathering, because that's where we've got to attach our facing. So always make sure you leave a gap. Even if you leave slightly more than me or slightly less than me, or you actually measure it with a ruler, unlike what I did, you just need to make sure there's a gap. Because several times I've not paid attention to that, and then it's really hard to attach your facing over gathers. So, now you want to open it and have a look on the outside and make sure that nothing has pinched and is in the wrong spot. And I'm pretty happy with that. I'm going to wear that exactly like it is. And you can see that the gathers aren't 100% perfect, but wearing that, you wouldn't even tell, right? It's close enough. I'm not spending an hour on gathering. I'm just not. So now I'm going to overlock that. You can overlock it all beforehand, but then you'll have a gathered overlocking and it'll be bulkier, so I don't like to do that either. Each to their own though. You'll find things you might want to do them slightly differently to me, and that is 110% okay. Going slowly because there's quite a lot of fabric over the gathered parts and I don't want to snap a thread like I did the other day. Ta-da! So that's now overlocked. And it's even, and it's flat, and it's beautiful. I love overlocking. So, not much to go now. The dress looks fabulous. Now we just need to add our facing, hem the bottom, and add our buttons. Buttons take forever, but that's okay. So it looks beautiful. You should be able to put it on as a dress, and off you go. Now, our facing. I always like to start in the middle at the back. That's just me. You obviously don't have to start there if you don't want to, but I'm going to. So, the middle at the back is our neck bit here. And we are attaching the inner part. The outer part we're going to overlock later. So, I'm going to join seam to seam. And then that is the center. So you can make a little nick, or you can put a pin, or whatever you like. Now I can still see my fold, so that's center back for me here as well. So I'm going to put right sides to right sides, like this. And then we just work our way out from the center. Now this line here, if it's got a direction, all your overlocking, you want to make sure it's going in the right direction. So the idea is that this, there's several ways you can look at this. This has to join up where the overlocking is, because that's your waist right there. Right? Then the pivot point here has to match up with the pivot point there. Like a nice tight angle. So that's easy. And then you just add pins in between. Lots of different ways you can do this. Alright, the bottom will most likely reach the bottom, unless you cut them differently. which I have not. So the bottom is going to reach the bottom, and we're going to pin that. And again, I'm going to add pins to this whole thing so I can smash through it. But if you wanted to, you could do the no pin method. Occasionally I like pins though. They are helpful. Especially with like a flowy fabric. Rayon is not the easiest thing to start with. I really can't stress that enough. But it is fabulous to wear, and a floaty kind of a dress like this does look amazing in it. So I'm not trying to discourage you to never try it. I'm just warning you. It might be tricky if you're still a beginner. But you also might love a challenge. So, I mean, whatever. 1 and 2. Okay. So now that point, and this point, work your way up. Ah! I have a sneaking suspicion I've cut something incorrectly here. So this will also be going over the part of your dress that had the top of the sleeve part. This all just gets joined into here. See, like, why is that not reaching? I feel like I had this problem last time as well. Always the drama. Alright, point to point. There's my, what's it called? I can't even think now. That alarm is driving me insane. The fact that it's going on this long makes me think it's not a drill and someone has slipped onto base. And it's not like a warfare kind of way. It's just somebody would have driven through the gate when the boom was up. Now they have to go find them, or something to that effect. Right. Oh, those pins are stabbing me in the leg because there's so many. Bottom to bottom. I'm running out of pins, so I might make these further apart since it's a straight bit. Like so. And then I can come up and do the neck bit. I'm so confused what I've done wrong. Could have just cut something wrong. I have a sneaking suspicion I did. We're gonna find out in a second. Because so far, all of this matches up pretty well. It's just this piece. I reckon I've cut it twice as big as I need. That would make sense. I think I cut this on the fold and I wasn't meant to. Of which I can fix that. So what I'm going to do, because I've cut it wrong, I could unpick it. We're totally not going to. I'm just going to chop that off. Unpin the back. So I've cut the piece wrong. So that's not the pattern. That's all me. Really should pay attention to what I'm doing sometimes. I would have cut it on the fold when I don't need to. So that's fine. By cutting this, by the way, my seams aren't going to match up, but I don't necessarily care about that either. Alright. This piece. Now I'm cutting too many seams. That's alright. It's alright. It's alright. Now what have I done? That way. That way. Stitch it back together. Hold that thought. I'm just going to do less of a seam allowance. Right. Drawing that up to here. I chopped the wrong bit off. There's a lot of fabric going on. So basically my neck piece is the wrong size. So what I'm going to do is, because I cut it wrong and I need to fix the problem, I just need to work out how big the neck actually needs to be. Right, so there to there, there to there. I'll lay this down, grab my neck piece, and work it out. Would help if I pin this together. Like I said, floaty fabric and everything keeps moving. Drives me nuts sometimes. Again, the curse of working with rayon. So I'm just going to pin it to where it pretends to need to be. Like that. And I'm just pricking up the weight. So the weight of this was pulling it off the table on me, which was super annoying. And we don't want that. So this needs to fit. Oh, I've cut this too short, not too long. So this piece here needs to fit all of that. So one way I can fix this is I can put some gathers at the top of my shoulder, and that would bring that in enough to make it fit. So I actually might do that. So I probably shouldn't have cut it off after all that, but whatever. So like that. So if I attach that back in and I put a few gathers here, which the pattern may or may not have, I don't even know, but that will bring it in enough to make it fit. So I'm going to do that. So we're going to do the gathers like we did before. I have a sneaking suspicion that maybe I possibly should have read the pattern instead of just doing it from memory. So let's do some gathers in the sleeve at the top. I'm not going to do a lot, we're just going to do a little bit. So we're going to stitch around. One stitch over, bring it back around. So I did all that cutting and stuff for nothing now. But that's because I thought I did it wrong. Back stitch that. Do the other side. So it's one sleeve there and one sleeve here. And it'll only need a little bit. And again, probably should have read the instructions. I haven't made this dress in like a while. Bring this. Make sure we don't cross over our lines. And try and also, if you've mastered the whole don't cross lines, also try not to sew within the seam allowance. So try and keep it close to the edge. Right, back to adjoining stitch length so I don't forget later. I'm not going to attach them yet until I've done this. So that bit needs to go there. So this needs to join to there again. I'm just going to do a really small seam allowance though, since I chopped some stuff off. And my needle come unthreaded. Of course it did. Other side. Come on. Don't be like that. Alright, it keeps trying to sew that corner into the machine, which is super annoying. So if this ever happens to you, I'm kind of glad it did so I can show you. Start further in and start with the back stitch. And that way you can get to the end without it trying to eat your project. Alright, let's try that again, shall we? So, join that up to here. Like that. And then we are going to join this one up to here. And then I'm just going to gather those sleeves so that it fits in the neck hole. So I'll go back to joining that center point. Like that. And then I'm going to work out to the sleeve. Because we're not gathering the actual neck back part. Like that. It's going to make a very cute sleeve. Even if this is not how the pattern goes, and this is just how I've decided to do it, it's still going to be super cute. Ta-da! And now it fits. Oh, would you look at that? And just for good measure, another pin there. And then the other side. So again, we're going to grab, and I always like to grab it with this instead of a pin because it can in fact bend your pin when you're trying to do this. That's why I now take the stiletto, because it's more industrious and less likely to bend. Oh, I have the perfect amount of pins today. Right, so now it fits. So now my facing is attached. And there's just like a cute little gather on the top of the sleeve. So even if it's not meant to be there, that is a great solution to my problem. Or it's in the pattern. I actually do not know. And I do not really care. It's a great solution and I'm sticking to it. So now we are going to sew all the way around the facing. So you start at one end and we're going to end up at the other end. And I'm on my joining stitch length. And off I go. I don't know if you just saw that, but I tugged on that and it straightened out, because again, rayon. It's fun like that. It's quite maneuverable, which is both good and bad. Right, so then we're going to get to here, needle down, and then we're going to pivot to get like a sharp edge there. You don't just want to kind of round it off. You want to have it sharp. Okay, so now we're getting up to like the bit. Not that it's actually tricky, but it's just a little bit trickier. So you want to slow down and make sure that nothing is catching underneath. Again, make sure you've got bobbin thread happening. It would suck if you did all this beautiful work, pulled all your pins out, and then suddenly you had no bobbin thread. Needle down, pivot, and then down the edge. Slower here because there's 2 pins, I don't want to bite them all. And then we're going to want to check that. So, flip it over and then check everything. So, most of your seams should match up unless you cut it like I did. And then some of your back ones won't, but that's okay. Still very cute. Very cute indeed. I like it. All my seams match up, so now I'm going to overlock that. And I'm going to overlock along the bottom at the same time, actually. And then it's just buttonholes and hemming. So, I'll move the pins. I always have my hand underneath. That way, no fabric sneakily coming under and I won't cut a big hole in my thing. I learned this the hard way. Now when we get to that sharp point, I'm actually going to curve this around because it doesn't matter. Again, we're making sure all the fabric's out of the way so I'm not chopping at it. That's all the way around. Now, I'm going to fold this over, and then I'm going to overlock the bottom. So I want to fold under my facing, just at the bottom, so that I can overlock everything together. Readjust. So we're just going to overlock the whole bottom and then we can just turn it up and stitch it. Again, if you don't have an overlocker, we can do a double fold hem or rolled hem. I'm going to fold that towards the back. As I get closer to the end, I want to fold this one under as well, lining up that seam allowance. Now I will iron all this later when I put the buttons in, but for now, right, because that now holds the facing back. All of that in the bin. Now some people stitch the facing to the seam allowance, and we might do that for most of it. Now it actually doesn't matter if we do it for the whole bottom part where the buttons are going to be. The buttons are going to hold it together anyway. So we can do it, and I will, but you just know that even though I've sewed that in, it doesn't matter that we don't get the very bottom because it's already being held in place. So I'm going to fold the seam allowance into this side, and I'm going to stitch on my interface piece of facing. And what this does is it just helps to hold it back. But like I said, it doesn't matter that I didn't do it all the way in the corner. It's still going to look fabulous. So I'm stitching about 1/4 of an inch away from the seam. And and I'm kind of making sure these are spread out and flat, and making sure that that seam allowance is underneath where I'm stitching. The reason you want to do a small seam allowance is to make sure that you're catching it underneath. Ignore all the banging outside. I have construction and stuff going on. They're building a school across the road. A little bit time consuming, but it will help the dress to sit nicer without having to top stitch the outside. We all know I don't do things if I don't have to. Arms back. Alright, so we're folding it under. You can also overlock this edge. Because it's interfaced, I don't have to. Sometimes I do, most of the times I do, but I think I'm going to skip it today. That's close enough to the bottom because it's all going to get held up anyway. Trim off those, and then so from the outside I still won't see any of the stitches I just did, alright, because it's all on the inside of that facing. So from the outside you don't even see it, it's just holding that back where it's supposed to be, and an iron will also help that in a minute. So before I do buttonholes, I am going to hem the bottom because that's the second last thing to do, and then we'll put in our buttons. So I'm just going to fold that up a bit, back stitch, and I'm going to go along and stitch it all down. Nothing really too major in that. Shuffle it over, continue on. Alright, and then I'm just going to chop that off. Tuck this up on there. And backstitch. And the hemming is done. So now we just just need, so all of this will get tucked under and then we can put it on. And a lot of this will sit. So I'm gonna tack down the rest of that in a minute, but first I want to put all my buttonholes in and my buttons. Alright, so that's the front there. So I'm just going to go off camera and iron this down flat because it will help to have it beautifully and even. And then we will switch over to the buttonhole foot. So I'm also going to show you how to do this. So let me just iron it and we'll come right back. This is the buttonhole foot. And these are the buttons that I'm going to use. I'm just going to go with like a nice white one. They're not too big, not too small. I can't actually tell you what size they are. I have no idea. But either way, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of the buttons, and this back bit moves up and down. So what we do is we put the button in here and then clamp it shut so it stays in. I'm going to drop off this foot and then put this one up like that, and we're going to go to the buttonhole section. So you also should need to pull down this thing and it should click forward and back. I don't know if you can see that. So we want it back to start with, and then we need to measure our buttonholes. Now in the pattern it actually comes with a buttonhole placement guide, which I shall be using. So I want one right at the point of the V. So I'm going to put my first one there. So I'm just going to mark on the spot, which is here. And then I'm going to line my first buttonhole that's on here up against it like this. And then I'm just going to work my way down and add the markings. So I want the next one here. This is erasable, by the way. You don't want to just draw on it with pen. It's a terrible idea. Then there's one right before the gathering, and then one further down. And again, this is why we did not put the gathering on this part. It would make it sit funny. Next one. Next one. Next one. And then they stop a little bit from the end. Now if you want to, you can in fact add another one. I'm going to, because from memory my other one, I'll just want one more button. So that's just what I'm going to do, so that I've got less to flow open at the bottom. You can put another one as well if you want it to go completely shut the whole way down, but it is a summer dress, so. Now, I'm going to put this garment in from the back and bring it in this way. And this line here, I want to line up with the marking. So there should be 3 little different colored lines on your buttonhole foot. I want to line that line up in the center. And I want to put the fabric, I'm going to line up the fabric where on my plate, it lines up from the plate to the thing. So you just want somewhere where you can line everything up so it's even. And I'm going to put this down, make sure that that's backwards, and then off we go. So it's going to stitch, and then it's going to go down, and these are a bit long. I've got to set this to F, and I'm just going to make them a bit shorter. There we go. And then it hits that back and it starts coming forwards. And then I'm just going to do that start bit again because it didn't quite work out as well as I'd hoped. Like that. I don't have to go the whole way back. That's the beauty of the mechanical one. If you had an auto foot, you'd just do it all again. But I missed the first bit because I had it setting wrong. So I've got the zigzag set to 2 and a bit, and F is for the buttonhole foot. And so there's my buttonhole. So I'm going to click that back. We're going to start again. We're just going to keep going all the way along. So you always bring it in from the back, and slide it up. Find your hole, and again, I'm lining up the fabric on the actual sewing machine so that everything will be even. So, down we go. I need to click, like that, and then it brings it forward. And then we're done. I'll trim off all the tails later. Click it back. Let's do another one. And this is how you do all the buttonholes. They are a little bit time consuming, but I think they're worth it because I think this would look better with buttons than press studs. Chop that off. Next one in. Alright, I'm going to stop making you watch me do buttonholes. And I will come back when we're up to sewing the buttons on. The best way I have found to open up buttonholes is actually with a craft knife. So that's what we're going to use now. I'm just going to put my normal foot back on. We're going to need that in a second. Some machines will put on buttons for you. But I don't have a buttonhole foot for this machine, so I'm going to have to manually sew them all on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold it like this, so like that, to hold it out so I'm not cutting anything. And I have the blade pointing up, and I put it in the first corner, and I slowly, oh, this is blunt, that's not going to work out for me. I slowly push it in, working towards the end. So you want to do this very, very slowly, and then cut along like that, and that should open up your buttonhole. I know some people use pins and quick unpicks. I don't trust quick unpicks. There is not one in this house. You will not find one. They're not my thing. So we just cut slowly along. You can also make a little insert and then take your snips and snip along towards the end. That is another option as well. But you do need the craft knife to get started. Again, because I don't trust quick unpicks. I know a quick unpick does basically the same thing. And if you want to use it, you go right ahead. But we're not friends, me and quick unpicks. Never have been, probably never will be, considering I refuse to use them anymore. I have unpicked so many things before in the past and created holes that it's not worth it anymore. Now I need to definitely change this blade. There's no tip on it anymore. Goodness only knows what I was cutting, but anyway, that's cool. So we're just going through and opening them all up. So then what I'll do, let's just pretend I've done them all. So then we're going to take this side and this side and line them up like this. You want to make sure that the waist is lined up, because that's important. So you'll probably put a pin in it like this. And we're going to pin these together like so. And then you just take your, pin it together, and you'd pin it all the way down. Right, so it lays like that, and it's beautiful and even. You want to make sure here's even, and the base is even, and everything's even. And then you just take a friction pen, and you stick your pen in the hole, and just kind of draw a little dot in the middle of the button hole. Once you've created the hole, you just draw it like this, and so then when I take this off, that is the placement for your buttons. Can you see the little dots? So let's just sew one button on, and then I'll do the rest off camera because you don't need to watch me. So I'm going to grab a button and a needle, which I'm pretty sure I have one on here just earlier. You don't want a really, really big one like this either, because that will create too big of a hole. You want the small one, which is here. I can see it. Whoops. Right, small needle. And I always double over my thread. That's just me, but I like thicker thread, so I don't have to do it as many times. Ooh, and that's magnetized. So I'm going to thread my needle. And like I said, I'm just going to do one to show you. And then I'm going to tie off the end. So I'm going to make a loop around 2 fingers like this. And then I'm going to thread it through 5 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Any more than that and it's too hard to tie the knot. 5 seems to be the magic number. And then trim off the tail. So now I'm going to position my button right over the center of that hole, because that's what I worked out to be the center. And I'm going to come up, maybe. Take some practice to be able to stab it through the hole. Up. And then, so you can either do 2 lines across or the crisscross. I personally love the crisscross. It's my favorite. And then we're going to hold the button exactly where you want it. Because it'll take a few goes before it stops shifting around. And then we're going to go up and down. And I'm going to do this, so I've now done the crisscross. I'm going to do this a few times. The more you do it, the more sturdy the button is. Up and down and up and down. Now, even though the thread's doubled over, I still want to do this a fair few times because I really want to make sure that it's going to stay. There it is. Up, down. There's no magical number that I'm aware of. You just do it till it looks really secure. I'm going to do one more crisscross. Down, up, and down. The more you do buttons, the easier you'll find to stab through the holes. So that's now on like a lot. You can see there's a lot of layers there. So I'm going to flip it over and I'm just going to scoop up like a couple of threads, nothing major, like this. And I'm going to put my pointer finger against the needle and then I'm going to wrap it 5 times. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The reason you keep your finger there is it holds them down. Then I'm going to pull this down to the bottom of the needle, hold my finger on it, pull the needle through, making sure that the knot doesn't come with me. And then it should be right at the bottom. If it's a little bit too high, you can actually open this out. Maybe. I tend to use the needle to separate the 2 strands. Right? And then you pull them apart and it will help to push the knot further down and then it'll snap when it's ready. Because I pulled too hard. And then just trim off the tail. And that is how you sew on your buttons. So I will continue to do that all the way down in a minute. But first, the very, very last step that I do, and I'll just do it now because it's fine. I've got to rethread the needle, of course. But I did get through the whole dress with, I've still got bobbin to spare. So it doesn't take super long. So we want to pin this facing in so it doesn't keep popping out. Especially around the neck, it tends to pop out because it's a curve. So what I'm going to do is, because I've ironed all of this, I'm going to hold this down and where this intersects one of my overlocked parts, I'm going to pinch them together and then I'm just going to stitch back and forth to hold it in place. This does not, oh wait, I'm still on that. Hold on. Back to this. So we're going to go forwards and back. And forwards and back and forwards and back. And we're just making a mess, essentially. But the point of that tiny little mess is that will now not be able to lift and annoy me while I'm wearing it. So we're going to tack down the facing to anywhere that a seam on the inside runs over it. So like here. So we're going to take this and here and we're going to tack those down. So you're not getting the actual garment, you're doing the facing and you're going to attach it to where the overlocking is, or your zigzags if you didn't do an overlocker. You just want to go several times to hold it in place. You can also manually stitch this. I know people that do, but See how already that now is not sticking up anymore. It now permanently sits down where it's told. So I'm also going to do here at this seam as well. So again, hold it flat, smooth it out, and then just pinch where they intersect and make sure that the actual dress is out of the way. We're only stitching it to the overlocking and the facing, so it won't be seen and it won't cause a disruption to your outfit. And I just do, there's no magic number for that either. I do it until I feel like it's enough. Right, and see how now, if I hold that not on the facing now stays down and inside of the top. And voila. Now it won't stick up while you're trying to wear it. It'll also be easier to iron, and everyone's a winner. And that, I just want to show you, the button goes through that hole perfectly because the buttonhole foot works out all the maths for you. So I just need to do that, and see that I like the white buttons. So I will just finish all of those, and then the dress is all done. So yeah, thank you all for tuning in, and I will hopefully be doing some more clothes soon. All right.